We all know Ubuntu is the most popular distribution in the world. And I threw Kali Linux up there because this is the most used distribution when it comes to cybersecurity, as well as the hacker culture. And Red Hat covers the business side because this distribution is not 100% free. And the way they charge as far as the model for Red Hat is that businesses pay for the support. But as stated, there are a whole bunch of Linux distributions that will meet most of your needs. And now let's cover the course distribution, which is the distribution I'll use throughout this course, which is Ubuntu. And we know that it's Debian based, and it is composed mostly of free and open source software. And Ubuntu is released in 3 different editions. They have a desktop edition, a server edition, and a core edition, which is typically used for Internet of Things devices as well as robots. And all the editions can run on the computer alone or in a virtual machine, which is why I chose Ubuntu for this course, because I want you guys to kind of follow along no matter the hardware that you are working with. Now, let's go on and get started. Now, as I stated in the previous segment, we will be using Ubuntu for the full course. So I will now cover how to actually download it and install the distribution. And I'm currently at ubuntu.org. This is the simplest way to actually get the Ubuntu distribution. If you hover up to the top where it says downloads, click the down arrow. That will get you the Ubuntu desktop. And the current version right now is 20.04. And I always recommend people use the LTS, which stands for long-term support. This release has the longest support time versus any of the others. Now, you can also install the Ubuntu server version, but it doesn't have a desktop environment. And like I stated earlier, there is a Ubuntu core or Ubuntu for IoT that you can actually download for your mini boards like a Raspberry Pi. Now, in order to download it, all you have to do is click on the 20.04 and that will start the download. And it only takes a couple minutes depending on your internet speed. But you want to go down and download this, and then I'll be back once it's finished to go through the install with you guys. So now that we have Ubuntu downloaded, I just wanted to talk about the couple ways that you can install Ubuntu. Now, there's the direct way. There's also a way to install it in a virtual machine, as well as you can install it within the cloud. But most of the times people install the server edition in the cloud because they may want to set up a web server or something to that effect. Now, you can install it directly to your hard drive, but I definitely don't recommend you do this for this course unless you have a secondary computer, because when you install it directly on your system, you have to make sure you have a backup of all your files. And since we're just going through a course and a simple introduction, I don't want people to go through this and mess up their computer by not having backups, lose files, and don't have a way to recover them. And then also when it comes to a direct install, you have to write the ISO to a USB or a CD, which will cause a little bit more confusion than necessary just to go through and follow and run a couple commands that I'll teach you through this course. So the main way I want to show you guys how to install Ubuntu is by using an application called VirtualBox. Now, Oracle VirtualBox is a type 2 hypervisor, and also VirtualBox can be installed on all 3 major platforms: Microsoft Windows, Mac OS, and Linux. And then also when you use VirtualBox, you have the opportunity to try the operating system before you actually commit to installing it directly on your hardware. And then also, one thing about VirtualBox, you have to have newer hardware, because the newer the hardware you have, the more likely that virtualization is supported through your processor. And since this is 2022, I know a lot of people are using newer laptops and virtualization is turned on by default. And I wanted to make sure I open this up to as many people as possible so they can go through the training successfully.